the 16 boxes. I honestly have never known how to make a 16 box Punnett square. I find it to be way too time consuming and space consuming as well. 16 boxes is a lot of space. So here's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to treat these two characters, the tallness, the height, independent from the color. And the reason I think I can do that is because I have no indication on this problem that the genes are linked. We'll talk about linked genes next week. Now, if these genes are unlinked, if they are independent, then I could treat the two characters independently. So I'm going to create a box, a Punnett square, with respect to tallness and shortness. And then I'm going to create a Punnett square with respect to color. So I'm treating these two traits, these two characters independently. Big T with big T, little t. And I'll do the same thing with the G's, big G, little g, with big G, little g. We got that? Okay. So I like that a lot. And then I'm going to go ahead and cross this box, generate what's inside of it. So that should be something like this when I cross those. Now, just saying it out loud, how many different phenotypes, I said phenotypes, do you see with just this first Punnett square? I see only one. They are all going to be what? Tall. How many different genotypes do you see? The homozygous dominants on top, then the heterozygotes on bottom, correct? How many different, listen carefully, phenotypes do you see from these Punnett square, this Punnett square right here? Two. The three that are green and then the one that is yellow, correct? How many different genotypes do you see? One that is homozygous dominant, one that is homozygous recessive, and two, or one half of them, that is going to be the heterozygote. Good? Now this question says to list all the genotypes. Okay, so I'm going to start with the homozygous dominance with respect to tall. Big T could be with the homozygous dominant G's. Big T could also be with the heterozygotes for G's, and then it could also be with the homozygous recessive. Now, doing this math question, what is the chance that the plant is homozygous dominant with respect to tallness? 2 out of the how many? So that's 1/2, right? 1/2 times. And what is the chance of it being homozygous dominant with respect to G? 1 what? 1/4. So it comes out to be 1/8. How about with respect to big T, what's the chance of it being big T? 1/2. What's the chance of it being big G, little g, the heterozygote?
1/2.
And 1/2 times 1/2 is what? 1/4, okay. And then how about being big T? What's the chance of that? Again, that's 1/2. Being the homozygous recessive G? 1/4. That comes out to be 1/8 as a grand total. And then the other genotypes of these progeny could be over here. Big T, little t with big G, big T, little t with big G, little g, and then big T, little t with little g and little g. I will let you guys take just a second and generate these blanks right there. Yay. So what do we get for the heterozygote with T and then the dominants with G? One what? Okay. Next one. Next one. Now, if you were to add up all of these genotype chances, 1/8, 1/4, 1/8, 1/8, 1/4, 1/8, if you add them up, what do you get? Just a 1 out of 1. So you've taken care of all of them. Now, what if they had asked you about not genotypes, but phenotypes? First off, look at the T's with me real quickly. Tell me, what are all the progeny going to be? Without a doubt, they will be tall. And then it's going to be 3/4 of them are going to be green, and then 1/4 of them is going to be the yellow, right? So it would work out that it is, just drawing a little line right here lightly, it is all of these plants up top that are going to be tall and green, and these two on bottom would be tall but yet yellow. That's 1/4 and then the 3/4. Yay? Okay. I'm going to let you solve question 2 on your own real quick, and then we'll check the answer. Looking at the Punnett squares that we've drawn out here, and realizing just the logic of this problem, what did y'all get for each of those blanks? Should have been 1/4 every which time. Now you could have, just to restate this again, you could have drawn out a 16 Punnett box square, which could take a while, but it does work. Or you could do it this way, and I find that this way is just way easier. I don't think I've ever done a 16 box Punnett square. I don't think that you need to. I think that this is way sufficient and less time consuming and paper consuming. It's conservative on many levels. Okay, let's now move, if you will, to the packet. And I think everyone was here yesterday, right? So everyone has one of these, correct? Okay, one person, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to a bunch of different problems, or go through a bunch of different problems. And what I would like to do is I would like to start on the second page, this genetics problems, or practice 3 problems, and go through those. Reading the initial prompt, it says that in humans, curly hair, it says, is dominant over straight hair. A woman that is heterozygous for hair that is curly marries a man with straight hair, and they have children. Good for them. Curly hair is dominant over straight hair. A woman that is heterozygous for hair that is curly. So I would say the woman has got to be big C, little c. What is the man, her husband? So little c, little c. So for A, it says, what is the genotype of the mother? I would say the genotype of the mother is going to be, whereas the gamete she could produce could be big C or little c in her gamete cells. And where did she get her big C and little c from? Her mom and dad. Now, which is which, I don't know. That's for a different problem. But she can pass on either her mom's trait or her dad's trait to her progeny. So her progeny have a chance of looking like her parents, which is the child's grandparents. What's the genotype of the father, though? With that being said, the only gamete he can make is just one that contains the little c gene. The recessive allele, the allele for straight hair, basically. It says, what is the probability that the first child will have curly hair? Now, I would want you to start working on getting Punnett squares done up here. Now, to show you how I would want your mind to be thinking about that, you would be drawing out a Punnett box, or a Punnett square, that looks something like that. Now, without putting all of our information inside the boxes, what is the chance that the first child will have curly hair? 1/2. What's the chance that the second child will have curly hair? No, I'm going to add a question G in here. If they have 5 kids with curly hair, what was the chance of that? So if they were to have 5 kids, all curly hair, and kind of think about it after they've had their 5 little kids, they're all in like kindergarten and first and second, third, and fourth grade, I guess, or whatever, and they're kind of sitting thinking about how cute their family is, and they're kind of wondering what was the chance of that ever happening. That's what this question is asking. So it would be 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1 over, as you said, 32, or 1/2 to the 5th power, which is 1 over 32. That comes out to be about a 3% chance. So as they're scratching their head, if one of them has taken biology, then they would say, well, the chance of that is about 3%. This is actually the same way you can calculate out what is the likelihood, or what was the chance of a couple having 5 boys in a row. It's the same logic. Okay. Question 2, though, it's really asking about a listing of all the gametes that can be made, correct? Now, I'm going to go through this part, and I'm just going to look at these questions real quick, and I'll tell you how many different gametes you can make. Listen carefully. How many different options do you have for A? How many different options do you have for B? What is 2 times 1? So there will be 2 answers for the first question, A. If you look at B, how many options are there? There's 2 options for A in part B. There's 2 options for A, right? And how many options for B? So there should be 2 gametes you draw out there. How about for C, how many gametes should be there? Should have 4 gametes drawn out. How about for D, how many gametes should you have? How about for E? 1. And F, 1 as well. 1 option for A, 1 option for B. In A, the gamete should be capital A, little b, or it could have been little a and little b. Could you have had a gamete with the dominant B allele? Why not? You don't have that. If this was you, these could be your possible gametes. This is not you, and this could be your husband or your wife, whatever the opposite is. This is what your somatic cells are, and this is what your gamete cells are. Half. Bless you. How about the second one, question B? You could have capital A, capital B, or you could have undercase A, the recessive A, with the dominant B. That's your only 2 options. I'll let you do C, D, E, and F, and then we'll check them in just a second. Okay, and so right there is the answer choices that I think you have. This is a question about making gametes, correct? Okay, good. Now, 2 is listing out all the different possible gametes that could be made. Question 3, though, is what is the chance of making a certain gamete? If you look at the prompt for question 3, they are asking you what's the chance of making the recessive A and recessive B gamete from the following. For the first one, does anyone have an answer for the first question? It's what? Okay, so 1/2 chance. Now, how did we get that? What was the chance of producing the recessive A allele? 1 over 2? How about producing the recessive B allele? 1 over 1? 1 over 2 times 1 over 1 happens to be 1/2, or 50%. For the second one, what's the chance of producing the recessive A allele from little a, little a? Let's back that up. What's the chance of producing the recessive A allele from having little a, little a? 1 over 1, right? I'm not going to write that down. And what's the chance of producing the recessive B allele? 1/2. How about in question C? Well, what's the chance of that happening? What? I think there's a chance in C. No, C. I would say it's going to be 1/4 in this one. 1/2 for producing the A, 1/2 for producing the B, so 1/4 overall. I'll let you do D and E on your own, and then we'll check them. What do we get for D? And how about for E? We're okay with doing these style of genetics problems, correct? How many different gametes could you make? And what are they? What's the chance of making a certain gamete? So it's just taking and adding a different depth or level of questioning to the problem. Okay, that was fun. Let's flip this over to the back real quick. Question 5 switches things up a little bit. They give you the parents, they give you the offspring genotype, and they ask you for what was the chance of that ever happening. So to lead you through maybe this first one real quickly, if you have the 2 heterozygote parents with respect to A, what is the chance their genotype or the offspring of the genotype of their offspring is going to be heterozygous just like the parents? 1/2. This says genotype. To draw out the little Punnett square off to the side, big A, little a, big A, little a, looks something like this. Out of the 4 boxes, there are 2 that look just like that parent, or that look just like the required genotype. I'll let you do questions 2, 3, 4, and 5 with a partner. To go back over this one was 1/2. What was the third one? 1/8. The fourth one was what? 0. And this last one was what? 1/4. Okay, awesome. And I think that that's a lot of fun. Are we good with that? Okay. Now, the last thing that I want to do today, I say last thing, it's not exactly the last thing, but it's getting close to it, is I want us to work out question 8, and you can work that out with a partner. And then I want you to work out question extra credit, I can call that a question number, and I want you guys to maybe try to work through this extra credit problem. Then I'm going to come back in, let's say, like 7 minutes or so. I'm going to show you how to work it out. And then your quiz today is like the extra credit problem, but it's going A through J. Okay. Because on this worksheet, it was extra credit, but the reality is that for this class, that's like a little bit inferior to like the problems that I want us to be able to do. So I want us to be able to do a little bit more detailed problems, and that's okay. Okay, so there are, if you think about it, 5 different letters that we're studying here, correct? And I'm going to go through, and I'm going to put the first parent, which was the female parent, on top, and then the male parent off to the side. Good? So for the female parent, it was big A, and then big B, little b, and then it was little c, heterozygous for D, homozygous recessive for E. Then the male parent was heterozygous for A, recessive for B, heterozygous for C, heterozygous for D, and then recessive for E. And they wanted to know, given those 2 parents, what is the chance that their child is phenotypically the same as the first parent? So let's do these crosses real quickly. And there's the first one. There's the second one. The third one. And there's the 5th one. Okay, so let's go through and let's look at the phenotype. The first parent was big A, little a. The first parent is showing the dominant phenotype with respect to A. How many of the offspring in fraction form would be showing the dominant phenotype? 3 out of the 4. The parent was big B, little b, showing the dominant phenotype for B. How many of the offspring would be showing the dominant phenotype? 1/2. Those 2 out of the overall 4. I'm just reducing it in my head. The first parent was homozygous recessive, little c, with respect to the third trait. How many of the progeny would follow this phenotype? one half of them. The first parent was heterozygous for that fourth trait. How many children would be phenotypically showing this same characteristic? 3/4. And then lastly, the first parent was little e, but all the progeny are little e. So what chance is it that this happens? 4 out of 4 or 1 over 1, so I'll just write 1 there. And since they're all independent events, I can multiply all those numbers together. So 3/4 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 3/4 times 1, that does nothing, but whatever. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 4 is 64. The answer is 9/64. Good job? We're okay with that. And on the quiz today, we would be okay with that. Questions or comments about this at all?